Hey, this is Paul from Passie's World of ICT, and today we're going to make this speedometer here, one for the rev heads. But anyway, we're going to make this in Adobe Flash. The main thing is to teach how to do pivot rotation animation in Adobe Animate CC, which is what Flash has now become as its new name. So let's get started. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need that Speedo background. So there's a website you can go to that has all of these different gauges and things. So the one we're using is here. Now you click on it and then we should be able to see it large size like this. All right, now if you get your snipping tool, which is part of the Microsoft things that come with Windows 10. If we get our snipping tool and go new, we can snip around this. So we're just going to snip around it to capture it. And then we're going to go edit and copy within the snipping tool. And then we go over across to Photoshop. In Photoshop, we do File and New. Now, Photoshop will remember the size here of what we snipped that as, and 72 pixels per inch should be good enough quality. So we just go create. All right, that gives us our blank canvas. It's the right size. And then if we go edit paste, it'll bring in that speedometer from the clipping tool, pasting buffer, copy paste buffer, right here into Photoshop. Now in Photoshop we need to do some things because we've got to get rid of that needle because we want a blank background. So if you just go onto your paintbrush tool, your normal brush tool, we've just got size 13 pixels, just a normal soft round brush. And if we hold down the Alt key, we can dip into this black color. And what we're going to do is we're going to carefully just paint over this and go near the circle and paint over. And we're also going to paint part of the circle, but look, we'll just pause the video while we do all that. I think you got the idea that we need to paint over that to make it disappear to have a blank Speedo. We'll also paint over the RPM times 100 and a few other things, and we'll come back when we're finished. Okay, now what you can see is we've painted over that, but we've got a little bit of a issue there. So if we dip into that white, so if we hold down Alt and dip in, we're just going to paint a little bit there just to bring that back. Okay, view and fit on screen. That's looking quite good. We just need to paint over the RPM. Forgot to do that, so I'll just make a big brush for that. Alt to dip in, just paint a whole bunch of black over that. Maybe a bit more black over here. All right, and we've made the circle in the middle kind of a lot smaller because we're going to make a needle that goes over the top and make a round circle in Flash anyway. So that's looking pretty good. Let's check out the size of it. Image size, okay, that's 829 by 751. We might just drop that down a bit to say 550 by 498. That's looking good. So we go File, Save As, and we're going to save this as a JPEG so we can bring it into Flash. And we've already been through this once before so you can see it there, but let's make this speed background number 2, let's say, save it as a JPEG. Yep, so that all should be good, and that's saved. And that's basically our work finished in Photoshop. So we can close that down, close down Photoshop, and let's start up Adobe Animate. And now we'll do the work in Animate. So Animate's going to open up here, and we just need to do Create New Action Script 3, and we'll leave the size here as the standard, like I think that's 550. If we click on that, we should see the properties. Click on the properties tab up the top, 550 by 400. We'll leave it that size. Now we've got a layer down the bottom left-hand corner here that already has a round open circle keyframe in it. So if we click in that, we're ready to go. And we'll do File, Import, and just import that straight onto the stage. So we need to find that. So I'm just going to use Speedo Background, just one I made before, and we bring that in, and that's in here. Now it's kind of a bit too big, so what we can do is go to the right hand side. Down the column are all the tools, and we just go to number 3, the third one down, which is the free transform tool. And on the free transform tool, click on that, and then we can reduce the size of this a bit. So maybe hold down Shift so it's at the same time. So hold down the Shift key of your left hand. That keeps it nice and proportional and round. And yeah, we're just messing around. Okay, so we've got that fitting in fairly well, and have it in the middle. Just this little white dot here, make sure that's right in the center. If we click on that, and well, it's okay, it's near enough. All right, so that's our background finished. All right, so double click down the left-hand corner in there, and we're just going to name that background. Okay, so that's the background. Let's try to spell it properly. Background. All right, so now we've finished the background. Now we need to make the background last. It's going to be a 55 frame animation. So you go to frame number 55 here, click in there, and up the top, just go insert timeline, and we just want to put a frame in there. Okay, that puts a black kind of rectangle, open rectangle at the end, and that's going to be the duration of our animation. Now the background's all finished, so on the padlock tool down here in the layer, let's just lock it up. Down the very bottom left-hand corner, right in that left-hand corner, there's an icon to make a new layer. So we just make a new layer. This one's going to be for the Speedo needle. So we just call that one Speedo needle. And we're going to have to make the Speedo needle. Now how we do that is we go to the polygon tool, which is down here. It's called Polystar, under the rectangle, under the oval to Polystar tool. On the options, we need to set it to polygon, but we want to do a kind of really skinny triangle for the needle. So it's going to be number of sides 3. We're going to make the paint bucket color here in the properties bright red. And we just draw ourselves a small sized red triangle. Now, if we go onto our scale tool and click on that, we're going to have to stretch that out quite a bit to make our needle. And we can move it over here and just see how long we need to make it. And we need to kind of start shrinking in the sides as well. So that's still a little bit too long. So we're going to be messing around with this for a little while. Okay, maybe a little bit skinnier, too skinny. It's funny how, you know, these things sometimes work really well first time and sometimes they don't. But anyway, that's kind of looks as though it's about as skinny as we can make it. I did manage to make it skinnier before. Perhaps if we magnify in on it, you can do more. So we'll just use the magnifying tool, get back on that scale tool, because I really want it to be nice and thin. Okay, so that's a trick, magnifying in. All right, so that's kind of looking good like that. Let's just slide it over here. Now we're going to add a round circle to replace the one that's in the middle, the better one. So we go on to the oval tool, and we're going to change the color from red to kind of a light gray color. Now draw your circle up here separately and hold down the Shift key while you pull the mouse and draw it, just so it's nice and round. So that's going to be that. And then if we get on our black arrow tool, now when you move this, it'll cookie cut into the needle. So be careful. We don't want to kind of be moving it backwards and forwards onto the needle and out of it again. But that's quite good where it is. And we just need a little black dot with the oval tool. This time change the color and the properties to black. And we're just making a little black dot to go in the middle of that. So we made our black dot. Get on the black arrow tool, select that. And we're bringing that in, and we're going to have a go at just positioning that in the center there. So that looks good. Now that's the whole Speedo needle has been built. So now we do a big square all the way around it with the black arrow tool, and we join all the parts together to make a symbol. So we're just pulling down our mouse, highlighting the whole thing, and we need to go modify up the top menu here, modify and convert to symbol. And the symbol we want is a graphic symbol. Make sure your registration here is right dead center. And this one we're going to call Speedo Needle. So we create this. And that will go into the library. A copy will be saved in there as well as it being on our screen. So you can see now that it is all just one object joined together, and we can move it around. Now there's a problem with this plus sign in the middle. If we make it spin, it's going to kind of spin round in the center like this, whereas we want it to be spinning right from the end. So to move that pivot point, we need to double click on this guy. Now, if you have a look on the left-hand corner here, we were in scene 1. Now, we're inside the Speedo needle, inside that graphic symbol, actually editing that. And what we do is we just draw a rectangle around it again with the black arrow, and we use the arrow key on the computer to nudge that down, keep moving it down until that plus sign is right in the middle of our little black circle. Okay, so that will be the pivot point now, and it's going to spin properly. Now, to get out of edit mode on that, up in the left-hand side, we go from Speedo needle back to scene 1, and that automatically saves it into our library. So now it's saved in the library up the top right-hand corner. If you flick to library, you can see it's set there with the pivot point. Okay, so we've got that in keyframe number 1 on the Speedo needle layer. And now we can move it across and into position. So we need to get it in the middle. Now, to help us with that, let's set up some guides. First, we need to view, zoom out, zoom back out again. And if you go view and go to rulers, what that's going to do is put some rulers down the sides and top of the screen here. But you hold the mouse down in that ruler line and you can bring out what's called a guide line. And we bring that out from the top and we go over the left-hand side, hold down the left button in that ruler, we drag out across here, and we've kind of got our crosshairs now so we can keep that lined up nicely. Now, they won't show when you do the animation, they're just here in this working area. So now we can move our needle across and get it exactly on the center, so that looks nice. Now, at frame 1 here in the animation, the needle is going to start at 0 miles per hour, because I think this is an American speed gauge by the look of it. We need to go on that third tool down again, our scale tool, and if you get near the bottom of it here where there's kind of the turnaround arrow symbol, might be a bit hard to see against the black background, but you can move that along and we can get it onto 0. Okay, so at frame 1 it is on 0. Now we're now going to make some other frames and then put the tween in after that. So we don't put a motion tween in yet. What we do is we make the other frames first, the position points where it's going to be. Now I'll just refer to where I'm making those position points. So the first one's at frame 10. So we go to frame 10 and we need to copy our speed needle into that frame. How you do that is if you've got a computer, there's function buttons up the top. Now we need F6. Now with our laptop though, we have to hold down a function key before we press F6. So I'd either be pressing F6 on your computer or function and F6. And what that does is you see a black dot appear on the timeline. So it's copied our needle into frame 10. Now here we get near it with that turnaround symbol again. And this, we're going to move it up to the 30 miles an hour mark, the 10 o'clock position on a normal clock. And our next one is at frame 15. So at frame 15, we're going to do function F6 again. And this time we're going to pull it down a little bit. And at frame 30 is our next frame we're doing. So at 30, here we press function F6. And at 30, we want to push it right round, and it's going to be redlining into the 80 zone. And then we have a couple more frames at frame 39. So we click near 40, and if you go down the very bottom there, you can see the frame numbers. So that's actually 39 right there. Now at 39, we're going to have it back a bit. So we move it back a bit there before the 70. At frame 41, which is right here, we're going to have it a little bit forward of that. And at frame 55, actually at frame 41, hang on, before we do that, we have to do our function F6 to copy it. Just Control Z, something happened there on the timeline. So we're clicked in at 40. On there, we're doing function F6, and we want it right on 2 o'clock. So if we move this red slider at the top, we can see it's going from 0 to 30, back a little bit, swings round to 70, Okay, we've lost our positioning at 30, so let's try and fix that. This is always a little bit fiddly. Then it's going to jump back at 40, and then at 55 at the end we want it right back at the start again. So we do function and F6 to put in a frame there and get on our speedo needle, and it needs to be right back at 0. Okay, so if we use the red timeline red bar, we can drag it along and see how it's going. So it's going to go up. Let's drag it. So it's going to go up to 30, up to 10 o'clock position, down a little bit, then it's swinging right round to 80, coming up to 70, back a little bit, then round to 0. Okay, now we do all of the in-betweening. So we click anywhere in between frames 1 and 10 on here and right click. We want to create a classic tween between there. Alright, so what that'll do is it'll put all the in-betweening and make it go up to 30. In the next one, we're right clicking and create a classic tween. So we don't want a motion tween, we want a classic tween. That'll make it go back a bit. In between the next two main keyframes at 15 and 30, again, same thing, right click and create classic tween. We can see it's heading forward now and redlining. In between 30 and 40, click into the timeline there, create a classic tween. That will take it back a little bit. And in between 40 and 55, the last ones, right click there and create another classic tween. Now, on the last one, it's decided it's going to spin round the opposite way to what we want it to do. It's going clockwise. So we've got to make an adjustment on this one. If you click in there and go to the properties, there's a rotate that's on auto. So we want to set rotate to counterclockwise. Now, when we do that, Flash has put a ×1 in here, and we'll show you what happens. It does go backwards the way we want it, but then it does one more whole rotation as well. So we don't want that one whole more rotation as well. So if we click back in the classic tween here and look at its properties, we just change that 1 to a 0. And then what should happen is instead it's going to go round and then it'll come back counterclockwise and stop at 0. So that's pretty much the animation. If we press enter, the enter key now, you can see it run. So that's what we want, that sort of thing. Now to generate the movie, we just go Control and Enter. And that's pretty much given us the speedometer that we want. Now the last step is just to add a little bit of sound into this. All right, so there's a website here called Freesound, which is freesound.org. Now you can sign up to this for free, which we've done, and you can get sound. So we just searched for car revving and we found all these different car revving sounds. And when you click on one, once you're signed up, you can listen to it, see how it sounds. Okay, and then you can click download and get that sound downloaded. Now we've already downloaded it, so in Animate what we do is we go File, Import it into the library, and we take the car revving sound WAV here that we've downloaded, and we open that up. Now that, if we click on the library tab up the top right hand corner, that'll now be in the library. See, it says car revving sound. You can see its waveform. Now we need to make a new layer to put that on. So down the very bottom left hand corner, click on that and make a new layer, double click in it. This is going to be the sound layer. And it's already put a keyframe in frame 1, so click into that keyframe and drag your car revving just out onto the stage, and that'll go into your animation so that now if you do Control Enter to play it, nice! Now we've got the revving, so that is really good. So that's pretty much it for the Speedo tutorial. So like our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be putting up more of these videos as we find time to do it. And thanks for watching, and hope you have a lot of fun making this animation.